What happens when two successful entrepreneurs get together for a drink? They talk shop, of course. So grab your favorite cocktail and sit alongside Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso, two seasoned business leaders that have driven their own companies to success, as they share from their experience and dive deep into the secret sauce that can turn a company around. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey guys, Vince Moiso here with the CEO Podcast, and today we are talking about understanding conflict. And Scott, I know you know a lot about this topic. It's something that you incorporate into your communication courses, and you even paid a visit to my EO forum, and we talked a lot through understanding conflict. So I'm going to let you kind of start this one off for us and give me your take around what we need to know about conflict in order to even get to a point that we can deal with it.
Sure. So generally, when I get in front of a group and we talk about conflict, I ask everyone to raise their hand if they think that conflict is negative, if they fear it, if they avoid conflict, and almost everybody raises their hand. People just hate conflict. Now, there's some people that like it; they like to fight, but most people hate conflict, and it's probably because of the academic understanding of conflict, which is it's really just it's a disagreement. It's a disagreement between two or more people. In fact, Karl Marx, Marxism, right, has something that came up with something that he called conflict theory, and all that. What he said is that wealth and power were the forms of that create conflict, and people's trying to hold on to wealth and power. Those that are powerful, those that are wealthy, create conflict to keep the masses down.
Yeah.
Now, there's more to it than just wealth and power, but that's a kind of a Marxist theory of it. Conflict can happen in many different forms. So one thing that I do know, unresolved conflict leads to hostility.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah. Leads
to hostility. So what I do is when we talk about conflict is I try to get people to reframe conflict and to reframe it so that we can get involved and do something with it. And the reframe that I like to do is that says conflict's not a bad thing. Conflict is just differing opinions. You and I are not seeing things the same way, and then work to resolve those things.
Yeah.
It's like it just changed. Like even that, I just saw you smile when I said that. Conflict is just a difference of opinion, and we all have those.
Yeah.
I don't think the same way you think.
Yeah.
Right. So we're gonna have conflict on some of this stuff. Now, is there a better word than that? Maybe. Because anytime I say conflict, people go, ooh, yeah, no thanks, right?
Well, I always, I tell you, especially in business, or I mean, this is a life concept that we're talking about, right? Yeah. I don't think this is just about business, right. But it does occur most often in business, right? And I think, well, there's three. Let me go back to this because I want to give some things that I learned around conflict. I was lucky enough to attend one of the courses that the Hendricks Institute puts together, and that Gay Hendricks is an author, and I've read several of his books, and there's a course on conflict, and he talks about three basic reactions to it, and it's fight, freeze, and flee, right? And so it's those three Fs, and those are just our most basic reactions to it. I found that I tend to be a fighter, and that's my initial reaction to it. But a lot of people do freeze, and I think the number one is really flee. I think most people tend to run from conflict. I've learned in business to hit it head on and to hit it quickly, and so the quicker I can get to resolve, the better as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, it just lingers out there, right? It just stays out there in the ether. Here's what I know: it's not going to just go away on its own.
Nope.
And so you do have to confront it in some way or another. What are the most? Let's just talk about the healthy ways to face conflict. So if somebody could take away a couple of things of just what's the healthy approach to conflict?
Well, the first one is go back to what I said earlier, which is to reframe it. Recognize that it's not a fight. It doesn't have to be a fight.
Yeah.
Recognize that it's not something that you have to run from or flee.
Yeah.
And that freeze reaction, even people that are good at this do that. Yeah. But do that momentarily.
Yeah.
And understand that it's not bad. not inherently bad by itself to have a different opinion from somebody. In fact, it can be a good thing. Conflict can be a good thing. So I look at it like this. I think I know a lot of things, and I have an idea on how I want things to be. And let's just do that. Well, if we just do what I say, we'll only be as good as I can be. But if you bring to the table differing opinion, a different way of looking at the world, a different way of looking at that problem or issue that we're talking about, which people are going to call conflict.
Yeah.
Am I going to get smarter by listening to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So reframing to say, what can I learn here?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? Go back to the communication process, which is listening to understand, the Stephen Covey concept.
Seek to understand, absolutely.
Listen to understand instead of listen to reply. So I want to understand you for a couple reasons. First, it's going to make me smarter to hear another point of view.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absolutely going to make me smarter. Second, I'm going to get ammunition. If I really want to get my way and the way I want to get things, if I understand how it is that you're thinking, I've got a potential of outflank that. Like get to your why and understand that, and then beat that up if I want to. If that's my goal. But really, my goal in the healthy way is to say, what is it? Creating synergy. What is it that you and I can put together that neither one of us would have thought of by ourselves? And to me, that's healthy.
Well, and creating the win-win solution, right? You know,
Yeah.
and Covey talks about that. Where does, let's talk about, because I want to stay focused here on understanding conflict versus, I think we'll have a separate podcast where we talk more and dive deeper into conflict resolution, right? So that's a topic in and of itself. Where we want to really understand conflict is where it shows up in our lives, and so I think immediately we could give countless business examples, and that could be customer interaction, that could be internal interactions with people that you're working with on a daily basis. It could be within a project, it could be within
competitors, maybe.
Competitor, whatever, right? So there's, I think, in business, I believe we can come up with a lot of examples, but again, I said earlier, this is a life concept that we're talking about. Where does it show up in life? Well, it shows up most often with those that we're closest to. Yeah. And so I think when you're in a relationship, your significant others, where it's going to show up with your kids,
Children.
It's going to show up quite a bit. And
with your own parents.
Well, and with your parents,
Sure.
Brothers, sisters, reality is what I've found. I mean, I don't do it today because I recognized it, several years ago, that we often deal with conflict in two different ways. We're dealing with it in one way professionally, mm-hmm. and dealing with a totally different way personally. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. So I had this conversation today with a gentleman that I was coaching, and we talked about that. And often people say, well, in my business life, I act like this. In my personal life, I act like this. And I'm saying, well, which of these two people do you like better?
Silly, right?
Well, I like this one better, and here's why. Well, why wouldn't that work over here too?
Right.
It's like, why can't you be your best self at home, in the neighborhood, in the office, wherever you are, right? Yeah. You can use the same, because people aren't used to it as all. Like, I've got to be this way at home, and maybe you have more power at home. Maybe you're a mid-level manager at work, but you're the parent at home, right? So there's a power thing. I can do this here, but I can't do that there. Well, is that power thing working for you at home, really? Or is it this collaboration approach that you have to use in the office that puts you in your best light and makes you your best person? Uh-huh. Why wouldn't that work at home? The conflict between your wife and your kids and you in the middle of it?
It does work.
Yeah. It absolutely works. So I look at conflict as things that are a difference of opinion, and most of them we make for ourselves. We just turn it into that negative connotation of conflict. I want to win this battle. I want to run from this battle. I don't know what to do about this battle, right? So that fight, flight, or freeze concept takes place in our life. So, it's not healthy to avoid it, because, again, go back to something I said earlier. Unresolved conflict leads to hostility, and unresolved could be just ignoring it, like you said. It doesn't go away by itself.
It doesn't go away.
Festers.
Yeah.
In you or them, doesn't matter. It's going to fester in somebody if we don't resolve those things. So
Yeah.
how do you know when you need to resolve it, right? That's not a big deal to you, but it might have been a big deal to me.
Well, I think it's speed. I think speed is important, right? And I think the longer you let something, conflict linger, the more damage the conflict is ultimately going to do.
Earlier, you said something about speed is the key, but not always.
Yeah.
They might need a little time to get over that first reaction. I know for me, if somebody tells me critiques, right? I want to hear it,
Yeah.
and I hate hearing it at the same time.
Yeah.
So tell me where I can improve. Always turns my face red. I don't know. I hate, but I need it. I love it. All that kind of stuff
Totally.
at the same time.
Totally.
So maybe what I need then is a little bit of time between when you tell me I'm screwing up
Yeah.
and talking about what we can do about that to resolve that conflict. So it's not always speed. I know there's plenty of times, in my home life that my wife just needs some time. Just give her some time.
Yeah.
So yes, but there's a concept in the effective communications course that we talk about that when these things happen, it's okay to step out as long as you step back in.
Yeah.
You cannot let these things go unresolved.
Well, it's
because
a
they
two-way.
will lead to hostility.
Well, and it's a two-way street, right? So oftentimes I've also found myself being on the other side where I want that resolution fast, and so then I'm pushing when the other person is saying, "Hey, can we step back, right? Can we take 24 hours so that when we come back together?" My wife and I have that. I was actually listening to a Brene Brown podcast, and she was sharing. It was really great. She shared, oftentimes when we come home, we've spent most of our battery, right? So we all have battery, and sometimes you're at, say, 100% when you start the day, and by the time you come back in the afternoon, you might only have 20% left, and then immediately, sometimes my wife is ready to have this heated discussion around something, and Brene Brown was saying she has this agreement with her husband where they'll look at each other and say, "I've only got 10% battery left. I'm not in a good place to have this conversation. Let's pick it up tomorrow." And so my wife and I we do the same thing. So once I heard that, I shared that with her. She said, "I love it. Let's make that agreement today."
Yeah.
So we made that agreement to each other, and every so often when that happens, I'm simply just saying, "Hey, I'm at 90 I'm at 90, I got 10% left. I got 10%. I'm not in a good headspace for us to have this conversation. Can't wait till tomorrow." You know what's interesting about that is that then by the time we both wake up the next day, it's already resolved and we hadn't even talked about it, because she wakes up and she goes, "You know what? I don't even really need to have that conversation. I thought about it. It's not a big deal. Let's do this, this, and this." And then I'm in a great headspace at that point, and I go, "I completely agree. Let's move on." And it's funny because that time that passes often helps for resolution to occur organically.
But you did bring it back up to say, yes, it's resolved.
Yes.
Right? So
Oh, yeah.
that part's important.
Yeah.
So if you just go to
can't
sleep on it and then forget about it the next day and move on, it's going to come back up.
Yeah.
It'll come back up.
Yeah.
So making sure that both are on the same page, whether it's a group conflict or an individual conflict, whether it's a business or whether it's home, make sure that if you step out of that, to give yourself some time, recharge the battery and all that you step back in and deal with it in some way.
So let's relate. We've often talked how some of our podcast content is so intertwined, right? And I want to talk a little bit about body language. So we had a previous podcast that we've talked about body language, and how do we relate this in understanding conflict? Because what I heard us just talk about and we agreed upon is, okay, great. We recognition, I think, is really important here. We recognize that conflict is taking place, but then there's this recognition of how the other, seeking first to understand, listening to understand, and maybe picking up on some of the body language from the other person, such that we're holding back and not pushing for immediate resolution, right? And things like that. Or even just picking up on the body language on what level of conflict we're dealing with, things like that. So think of it, in terms of really understanding conflict, recognizing the conflict that's happening, and how does body language play into
So
that?
how to recognize it is kind of the thing. So it could be tone of voice, could be the facial recognition that I just hurt somebody, right? You can see that when you see some or angered somebody, that shows up as well. So going back to the body language, there's like 7 different signs that you can take a look at just within the face. If I say something and your reaction is not what I was thinking, and I know that there's a problem, the first thing that I might want to do is just say, what just happened here? What was the nerve that I just touched? I'm just a little pissed off right now. I need to give you the grace to say you need a little time. And if you don't, let's go, right? Let's deal with it, but ask if they need a little bit of time. So there's lots of things that you can see. Go back to the body language one, right?
Yeah.
Look at their feet. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the look at their feet. If I'm with somebody,
Are they in or they out?
customer, wife, employee, whoever,
Yeah.
and I see that their feet are heading to the door, it's not a good time to try to resolve that conflict. Right? Give them the space that they need, and then ask them, say, hey, when can we get back together and talk about this?
Mm-hmm.
And set a date for it if you want. That's okay as well. If you're gonna give me the grace because you've recognized that my face didn't react well, my feet are going in the same direction, or I just close off like this, with the arms folded over my chest. Any of the classic signs that tell somebody that they're not interested or they're protecting themselves. If you remember, go back to the body language, there's another one if you're dealing with, and women do this more than men. But if you say something and they bring their hand to their neck, that's a protective move. In the wild, animals go for the neck and the jugular and try to get it. So the body language thing is really cool if you get deeper and deeper into that. But looking for those signs to see whether or not the space is safe, and that's what we're looking for. So we got to look for that safe space. And if it's not there, how do I create it? I can create it in a lot of different ways, and we'll get into this when we talk about the conflict resolution. But how do I create a safe space for somebody?
Are we talking about silent conflict? Because is that such a thing? I feel like it's often a thing. I think of that silent reaction, right? Where, okay, great, I'm just not, the other person may not want to confront on the conflict that was just created over something, and so oftentimes, let's just talk about business for a second. So you've got the dominating CEO, or you've got the dominating VP of sales, or whatever it is, where you might have other employees that are a part of that company that are intimidated by that person. That's the person that just takes over the meeting or takes over the conversation, these type of things. And so there's conflict that then gets created. I'm calling it silent, for lack of a better way to describe it. I'm calling it the silent conflict. And so how do we understand that?
So my job as a communicator is to look for those opportunities. So it's in a group meeting, and whether I'm running the meeting or just part of the meeting, and I see those signs, it's incumbent upon me to bring it to whoever's leading that meeting, or if I'm the guy, to make that, hey, wait a minute, something's going on here. Let's stop, let's reset, and let's see what we can uncover. So yes, the silent things happen all the time. If it's between husband and wives, if it's between your kids or whatever, it's really evident. When they're upset. I had a situation with my son the other day. We've been getting along great. It's been wonderful, right? And he came over to the house. Got some things going on in my garage. We're doing some mechanical repair stuff in my garage. And I'm sitting in my massage chair and just relaxed. My eyes are closed. Hey, Dad. He comes in and he was like in his trying to be upbeat mood. And I said, hey, what's happening with the motorcycle? Boom. Immediately, things just turned. Just turned. Why? He wanted to come in and talk about sports, weather, news, whatever, how's mom doing?
Anything but that.
And so my old self would have gone in and saying, can't leave that thing in here. What's your plan? What are you doing about it? Whatever. But because I'm trying more now than I used to, and I recognize that he was upset, that's not what I want. That's not the relationship that I want. Do I want the motorcycle out of my garage? Yeah, I do. Yeah. But the relationship to me is more important than that. The same thing happens with your business associates, right? what's more important right now to resolve this thing and get it done and continue to press and get them to fear me, get them to just concede, get them to whatever, to do what I want to do, or develop the relationship.
Yeah.
So that's to me, that's how I reframe. What do I want? What do I want for you? What do I want for the relationship? And the third question, what do I want for the relationship, is almost always more important than the first two. What do I want? And what do I want for you? Not nearly as important in most cases as what do I want for the relationship. So that third question is what's gotten me to stop and look at what I'm doing and see if is the next thing that I'm going to do or say going to help that third question, what do I want for the relationship? So I don't need to resolve it today, but I need to resolve the conflict at some point. When the space is safe, when the other person's ready, when the group's available, when whatever, and I don't know that yet. I don't know what that time's going to be necessarily right now. But I can explore and I can try to find out. So
yeah.
That's how I look at it, right? It is what is more important. Winning this battle, building that relationship. And when I do that, I fight less. Because I'm a fighter too. I grew up as a fighter too. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't run from conflict. I'll challenge it. I'll go head on. Rarely do I freeze. Except now what I do is ask those three questions. And the third one being, what do I want for the relationship? And is the next thing I'm going to do going to add to what it is that I want? Get me what I want.
Yeah. Well, you never win a prize for being right. I hate to break this bad news to everybody listening right now. You don't get a plaque for being right. You don't get, some windfall of money for being right. You get nothing for being right. Absolutely nothing. So there's no gain, other than your ego getting stroked as you walk away. So I'm
going to go back to an old Dr. Phil thing, not the recent Dr. Phil who's all commercial and all that, but an old Dr. Phil thing that I said, that I heard him say one time. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? That goes along with what you're talking about. You don't get any prize for being right.
Totally. Well, I think we can close things out at this point, just on the topic of understanding conflict, and save I think a deeper discussion around resolution. So when we talk specifically around conflict resolution. I don't know. I think you covered those three questions. I think were the most poignant thing you could point out. So you want to quickly repeat those three? Because I don't really, in terms of when I was listening to you say that, I said, yeah, those, when we typically were ending with, hey, here's three things you could take away right now, right? I mean, that's it. I mean, I think if you think of those three questions and really understanding conflict, you've hit it. So can you repeat those three?
Sure. So the way I view conflict these days, I ask myself three questions, and then I have a fourth follow-up. What is it that I want? What is it I want for the other person? And what is it that I want for the relationship?
Yeah.
The answer to those questions lead me to the fourth that says, is what I'm going to do next going to get me any of those three? If so, do it. Right?
That's it.
That's it. Really simple.
It is.
Hey, so today we're doing something different. We have been on the IPA kick and up to now. So we're doing a little sushi fest in a few minutes here in between sessions. So we decided we're going to go with the Japanese beer. So we are drinking Sapporo right now. It's fun. It's easy. It's light. It's hotter than heck outside right now too.
Nothing wrong with the Sapporo. It goes very well with sushi. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
Easy beer to drink.
We'll show you a picture of our sushi platter when it gets delivered here as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. Understanding conflict, reframing conflict in order to get it what it is that you want.
And stay tuned for more. So look out for our next podcast around conflict resolution so that you can continue the conversation with us. Till next time, cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. To learn more about Scott and Vince, please visit theceopodcast.net and check out the calendar to tune in for our next episode. While on the site, you can also listen to past episodes, access additional content created for our listeners, and if you would like to dive deeper into any topic, there is an option to schedule some time with Scott or Vince. Thanks for listening.